Stay right where we are. All right, perfect. All right, since we don't have any member project showcases today, I'll turn it into a little bit of tool time. I was going to do this as a sidebar for my clinic, but I picked up one of these tools. It's called a Neo ruler. They come out of Hong Kong or Singapore. I got mine through Kickstarter, which is a program where factories who think they have an idea that might be marketable go out to the public and they ask you at a discounted price to back them. So you basically order time, and if they get enough orders to run a production run, then they charge you and you're the first ones to get the product. So that's what I did. It comes as a normal ruler. I got the caliper add-on for it too. One of the nice things about this is that, see if I can start it. I haven't checked the batteries lately. No, it doesn't want to start right now. But these things are programmable. So on the project that I was going to talk about today, I had photographs and I needed to basically, there were no plans. So I could literally take this and with a known dimension off the drawing, I could set the ruler to that. And as I went, it would tell me what any dimension was. So if I needed like the length of the vehicle, I just ran the calipers out, held it up to the photo, and it told me it was 16 feet. So I was like, perfect. And again, because a lot of times if you have photocopies of prints and you don't have a scale on it, or they didn't give you a legend that tells you, and even if you don't know, like you may have a copy of a print, but it may not be a full-size original. You have no way of knowing unless they have the scale bar on there. So it gives you a way to basically put in virtually any oddball scale that you needed to. So
you could also use that if you're trying to duplicate a building.
Correct.
And put your rod out there with
yep.
black and white markings. Take a photograph of it and that will scale out there.
Yes. Yeah, in this case, I was working off the historical photos. So whoever took the photos back in probably 1966 didn't bother to put up any kind of measuring device in their photos. They were great square-on photos, but had nothing to go with for scale. So it took me a little while to figure that out, and this came in handy for that device. So I should probably get it back on a charger. It has lithium batteries built in, so you just charge it off a USB port. Yes?
How much was it?
I want to say it was around $100.
That was like the first production?
Yeah. I mean, it was, when they listed it up, it was listed in Hong Kong dollars. So it looked like it was like $400, but in US it came out to about 100. So, and I've been very happy with it. It also has Bluetooth enabled. I haven't quite tried to play with it that much, where literally you could take a whole series of measurements and it would just populate them into a spreadsheet for you as you're going. Yeah, one of the company that makes this is Hozo, and they make a lot of tools for like architectural and engineering firms. So they make laser rangefinders that you could go in a building and just shoot, hold it to the wall here, get this wall dimension, hold it to that wall, get this, and the whole time it's just recording it to your cell phone. So it's not just like a startup company. It was a new item for them and they wanted to try it out, and now they are available regular. If you go online, you can find Neo rulers, probably from Amazon or somewhere like that. So again, it's a neat way to go. Another one that I recently purchased through Kickstarter was one of the ultrasonic cutters. They operate at about 40,000 hertz. Huh? This one was, I forget now. I forget the name of it. But if you've looked at the Micromark sells 2 ultrasonic cutters. The base model is like $399, and their improved model is like $499. So if you want to drop $500, go for it. When I bought this one through Kickstarter, it was like $200.
There's a new one coming out that's about 100.
Yeah. So it's a good resource to look at every now and then. They have different categories you could just check off when you become a member of Kickstarter. So if it's like technology stuff like this or tools, You just click those off and you'll get notifications anytime a new product might be available. So it's a good way to go. All right, as always, remind you, Discord's out there. It's a great resource to use. It's a lot better than a typical social media platform because there's no politics. It's the NMRA. All we talk about is trains there. There's any number of channels so that you can even start your own channel. So if you are a prototype modeler and it's a railroad that you want to model and they don't have a channel already started, you can start a channel for it, and people that are like-minded, you know, it's a place to share information. They also have chat rooms there that you can basically reserve those, and you can have basically a live meeting with video or just audio, whichever way you want to go. So theoretically, you could do a division meeting through Discord.
The only thing is you do have to be a member.
Yes, you have to be a member of the NMRA to use it, but it is one of those benefits that we have, and there's a lot of good out there. One of the ones that I rely on a lot is for the AP program. You know, if you have a question about something in the AP, what you need to do, you can put it in there, and if you don't get the national head of the AP program answering your question, you're going to get one of the MMRs who are very knowledgeable, and you're going to get a straight answer from them.
That should be one of your upcoming clinics on how to use Discord.
I can look into that. I think we should, because yes, a lot of us are probably not really comfortable with that, but it is a really great one to go with. Again, as it was also in our email, the division, we're always looking for clinicians to give a clinic. Anything you've worked on lately, you follow a certain railroad and you know history about that railroad, and you want to do a presentation on that. The topics are anywhere, any scale,
Okay.
geographic location. You know, if you're into European railroads and you want to do a clinic on that, we're always welcome to it. We never turn anybody down. So again, the clinician
Pretty soon.
So
I'd like to also add, if you have a clinic idea, but you think it's only like a 15-minute clinic idea, that's great.
Yeah.
I can take and put a couple smaller clinics into a slot. That's no problem.
Yes.
You don't have to go 45 minutes or something. Don't worry about the time frame.
And doing clinics like this at the division level do earn you points towards your AP volunteer certificate, and I think your AP, what is it, publisher? Author award. Yep. Yeah, you have to have handouts if you're going to go that way. And again, also Don White is our layout coordinator. If you have a layout in any stage, could be a, you know, plywood Pacific, it could be just open bench work. We're always looking for a layout that we can allow members to visit after our meetings. So again, please consider that. Me personally, I like seeing layouts that are still under construction because I learn a lot more from how they did it. And next meeting is June 14th. It will be in Eastern Connecticut. I think it's going to be down
In the
southern eastern side of the state. So probably somewhere from Norwich to Ledyard, North Stonington, Groton area. So somewhere down that. We try to do rotation every other meeting. The last year we backed up a couple here in the main location, but we're trying to do a location every other meeting in a location around the state. One of the nice benefits to that is we get clinicians that don't normally come to the meetings. We also do layouts that would be too long of a drive for us if we were always here in Wethersfield. So it's a great way to go. We just did Northern Tier, so we were up Springfield and Holyoke neck of the woods. So always good to go that way. Coupler, this morning in your email, you would have received a survey from the region. You may or may not know that National decided last year that they would no longer accept payment for the hard copies of the regional magazines. Each region had to set up its own way to handle subscriptions and payments to that. And NER has done that, and the transition has been slow, and it's causing a serious financial draw on the region right now. So the life of the NER coupler kind of hangs in the balance right now. They're trying to figure out what is going to make it more popular, so either more people will subscribe for the paper version, and again, they're always looking for articles for the coupler, and again, they're probably going to be asking if you're viewing the PDF version online, because that comes at no extra charge with your membership. As far as I know too, the NER is still looking for a social media coordinator to handle our message out to the public. It's the best way we're going to recruit younger members into the NMRA. Most of them are all on social media. They're on YouTube posting railroad videos that they're shooting. Their modeling is all out there on Facebook or some other of the social media platforms. So to keep the organization moving forward and growing, we really need to attract these younger members, and there are a lot of them out there. So again, it's an important position. This year, the regional convention's in Concord, New Hampshire. You should have already gotten emails on that. The main hotel, believe it or not, has already sold out for reservations for Concord. They're already into the overflow hotel for reservations. So it appears that registrations are going very well for Concord. And again, remember the partnership program. It's a benefit that you get with your membership. There are a lot of vendors that give us a discount. You just have to click on the vendor, find out what the discount is, how you get it. It's usually through online orders. They give you a code to apply when you're checking out.
And just for reference, there is a new list as of April 7th, not in the magazine yet. It's on the table. There's like about, I think, 10 additional new vendors.
Yep, the list is always changing, so always pay attention to that. Again, Micromark, I think, is usually on there. So if you're buying tools, that's always a good way to go. The Division car project, I believe we're down to only 6 cars left now. And Mike is here, so I did have people questioning whether the cars would be available today, and Mike is here. I know I'm due one yet. And yeah, by all means, see Mike in the back. We prefer cash or check at this point if you're buying new. We could still, but it saves us the fees in dealing with PayPal if we can just do it with cash or check right now. And that project was well received. I know Mike's put out a couple of graphics for a potential future project. We'll probably do another survey at some point, again, to see if we want to do a different scale or what people are looking for. Personally, I like the idea of having a fictitious but linked to the Nutmeg Division business that the car is operating for. Makes it more useful on your layout than just an anniversary car, I think. So again, stay tuned or talk to Mike about any ideas you have on that. And Mike graciously provided us a map of, here is a scattering of where the Nutmeg Division cars from this run ended up. And we added, did we add a couple more beyond what was on this map? Did we have a couple late?
No, I didn't count the Connecticut because so these are all like ones and twosies. So,
yep.
Couple down in Florida. Lucy's the one in Mississippi. I just had the one from Tennessee last week. So.
Yes.
So her video, the video Lucy did was they probably got some more out of that.
That's great. If anybody didn't watch that, Mike, there was a link in one of the last emails. Just click on the link and it's a YouTube one, and Lucy was super excited to get the car. All right, tomorrow, if you want to drive in the weather, Dartmouth is having a train show. Keep that in mind. All right, we have another train show on the 26th of April here up in Maine. Hooksett is on April 27th. which isn't too long of a ride because that's right down near Manchester. And the National Convention is in Novi, Michigan this year. If you haven't signed up, there's still time to do that. Please consider it. This is the new format now where it's, I believe, a day shorter than the old national conventions, and they're actually using smaller venues now. So again, it's trying to be mindful of trying to keep the costs down to everybody. Trying to find a venue that was large enough for the National Train Show was very costly. So they decided to scale that down a little bit this year.
Free parking.
Yes, which some of the bigger areas don't have free parking.
$20-something parking to figure out when you're there and when you're out.
Yes, exactly. And again, the NER convention is going to be in September this year. Going to be in Concord. Should be a really good one. I believe they're doing a charter. They doing a charter on Conway Scenic? I'd have to go back and look. But there is a charter trip booked in with that. And again, we have 2 clinics today. I'll be doing one on weed burners, and
Not me.
not you. Yeah, who is that? Okay. Well, for some reason they had David Yell in the messages. Oh, so I followed you then.
And then you didn't see my update.
Yes. All right. Not a problem. And again, today's layout tour is going to be Dick Joyce's layout up in Wilbraham. Again, Dick passed away, but his widow has graciously offered to open it, and some of his friends are going to be operating the layout today for us. So it could potentially be one of those last chances to see this layout. Yes?
All right, I want to mention that the slips showing the address are going to be on the table in just a couple minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we don't ever publish it in the slideshow. We want to keep your information private. So again, the slips with the address will be on the counter over by the coffee pot. And that's it for the main slideshow. So at this point, the next order of business will be our election. We have 1 open board position this year. Mark Herrick has thrown his hat in the ring to the board, so I'll give him a few minutes to come up and introduce himself to anybody who don't know Mark.
Good morning. I'm from Windham, Connecticut. I've been a member of the NMRA since the mid-'80s. My first convention was up in Boston. I guess my big focus on wanting to be a director or be involved is just interaction between the board members and the new members and people, you know, that start attending. I think a lot of times for me, being a young guy in the mid-'80s, going to NMRA events, I always found that I was ignored a lot and not really recognized. And I think that's a big thing that the NMRA has, sort of a stigma that we've had. And as a board member, I would like to try to address that directly, to try to interact with new people that come to meetings and make people feel welcome. So that's a big drive of my part, wanting to be on the board and be involved as a director. I'm a HO scale model railroader. I have a layout based on the BNSF in Montana, in a 20 by 28 foot room in my barn in Windham. I'm a big operations guy. That's sort of my focus. I like operations. I go to many op sessions and throughout the country. Been to Texas, been to all the NMRA regional meets and national meets, operating all over the place. So that's anything about me. Any questions for me or anything? All right.
Very good. Okay, so at this time, we have 1 candidate available. I will open it up to the floor if there are any other nominations from the floor. Okay, I will close nominations then, seeing there are no other offers from the floor. We only have 1 candidate. I will just ask the recording secretary to cast 1 vote for Mark, and welcome aboard, Mark, as our new board of directors member.
And before you get on to anything else,
Yes.
if you haven't signed in, please sign in. There's, I think, 4 people that haven't signed in yet. to get somewhat accurate accounting.
Yes. And again, if you're a longtime member, when you fill out one of the slips there, just put your name down and we'll know who you are. If you're a new member or you haven't been to meetings before, put in some of the other information so we can find you in the member index and credit it accordingly. Along the operations line, James, do you want to talk about, you've got another session coming up? Is that officially on the
Phil, I didn't update my calendar and I didn't know Island Docs was that weekend.
Oh, okay, so maybe we're not doing it then.
So, yeah, it's not gonna be that, it's gonna be another weekend. I gotta
Okay.
check my calendar.
All right.
But,
Any of you who don't normally operate, but would be interested in learning, James does run our ops. We do a Saturday morning ops session, so layout owners. Any day on Saturday, true. But we usually reserve it on a Saturday, and any layout owners that want to do a operating session just for the members of the Nutmeg Division, anybody who's signed up will get notified that there's an ops session available, and you can just contact through that site to James, and he will record you for an ops session. So again, it's a good place if you don't do a lot of ops and you'd like to go and learn. That's what I did, quite frankly, and it's a lot, no stress then, because a lot of people there aren't very experienced. Nobody's going to chew your head out. Head off, you've made a bad switching move or something like that. We're all there to learn. So it's a great way to go, and it's one of the services that we do offer in the division here is the ops session. Also, I should mention that Mark also volunteered to run our tool crib program that we'll be launching soon, and that will be basically a lot of us members have specialized tools for model railroading that if our layouts are completed, this stuff is sitting on a shelf collecting dust right now, like fast tracks jigs, as Mark had mentioned. So we're going to set up a program where Mark will be the clearinghouse. If you need something that's on the list, he has who is the owner of that piece of equipment and willing to rent it out, or at least, loan it out to another member, and he'll facilitate the meeting and the transfer of the equipment. Consumables like saw blades and things like that, you'll be responsible for getting your own, but it's a way to not have to buy a $150 fast tracks jig if you want to build a turnout or two. So we're going to do that. Eventually, we may get to a point where the division actually owns its own equipment, but that'll be for down the road, because we have the logistics of where do we store it and how to handle it from there. But again, another member benefit, we're always looking for ways to get value back to you as the members for being part of the NMRA. So again, keep that in mind. And if everybody wants to take a 5-minute break, you can refresh your coffees or grab a donut. See Mike for the cars back there. I'll get my clinic up and ready to go here.
Right where you're at.
So I guess
Welcome aboard.
They were just lucky road. Yeah,
I'd love to be able to handle all the traffic.
well, it's like the NMRA, those are targeted at NMRA. You know, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Everybody.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. Even though.
Yeah.
Did you really? Yeah. Wow. Got married a couple years ago.
Or do you want I do, I've got a senior who's yes, but I was Yeah.
All right, we'll get going again. Thank you. All right, my clinic today is on, in model railroading, we love to fall down the rabbit hole all the time. And in this case, I saw a piece of maintenance away equipment at the Pioneer Museum in Gunnison, Colorado. I took a few pictures of it, said, oh, that's neat, and just kind of stored it away. Didn't think too much about it. I was more interested in, they had Denver and Rio Grande C16 number 268 painted up in the Bumblebee yellow scheme that was at the World's Fair. And I wanted to take a whole lot of photos of that, so I spent most of my time doing that. But then I found out that there was a lot of questions about this device out there. And a matter of fact, I found out through one of the discussion forums that the piece had been saved from the scrappers by a local rancher in Colorado who just thought the thing looked really cool. So he bought it off the Rio Grande for like $10 and had it on his ranch for decades, finally donated it to the Pioneer Museum, and there it sits now. And there's almost no information on this piece of equipment. So that got me started trying to figure out what this was. I do love maintenance of way equipment. I do model the Rio Grande. So this is my little quest to figure out what it was and what it is and try to make a model of it. And basically, what I found out that it was a weed burner, and the next problem was, well, was it shop built or was it built by an actual manufacturer? So I started trolling the internet looking for manufacturers of weed burning equipment. Here we go. So again, turn of the 20th century there, the typical means other than cheap labor and digging out or tearing out weeds along the right-of-way by the section crews was using the application of raw steam. So what some of the railroads would do is actually fit a locomotive or under the tender a pipe with a bunch of holes drilled in it and plumb it into the steam from the locomotive and just slowly roll down the tracks and basically scald the snot out of the weeds that were growing along the right-of-way. And that was mildly effective. One of the problems is that you didn't kill the roots, you just wilted the plant down and you knocked it down, but it grew back pretty quickly. So railroads started looking for another way to go. I can't find any, the earliest patent I found for a weed burner was like 1904. So probably around 1900, somewhere in that range. Somebody got the first idea to let's use fire. We're all Neanderthals, we want to use fire. So they came up with ways to use torches to burn the weeds down. And originally, the fire concept was having the section crews go along and literally just light the weeds on fire. But that usually got out of hand, and that wasn't a good way to go. So they were like, okay, we have to have a way to contain the fire. We don't want to start forest fires. And So several manufacturers started coming up with these mechanical weed burners, which usually involved forcing air down through pipes and injecting atomized ether. Some of them ran off of gasoline, which to me is absolutely frightening. Some of them used number 2 diesel oil, and a few of them I suspect probably ran kerosene, but I haven't found any direct confirmation of the kerosene use. I did find in a 1921 the National Registry locomotive reporting to the FRA. I did find an accident where 3 individuals were killed in a weed burner explosion, probably a gas job, if I had to guess. So yeah, they could be pretty dangerous pieces of equipment. Some of the manufacturers built them as self-propelled vehicles. Others would basically build them onto a flat car that was pushed by a locomotive. You know, clearly that wasn't always a great way to go, because now you're paying for a locomotive crew along with your maintenance guys to do your weed burning. Weed burning was still pretty common up into the 1950s, probably in the early 60s. Most of the railroads started going to herbicides for their weed control, and that's pretty much still the case today. I would suspect that there's a chance that weed burning technology could bring itself back again. You know, there's been lawsuits with some of the chemical manufacturers over, you know, exposure to things like Roundup and everything. So you never know, it could go full circle. There's a lot of new technology with radiant heat, and might be a way to go. So the earliest ones I could find here, Topman's here was out of Sacramento. Their patent was 1910. The gentleman who started Topman's was actually an engineer for the Colusa and Lake Railroad in California. And these were probably marginally successful out on the West Coast there. And it was noted in an article that the Hilo Railway in Hawaii was so happy with the one that they imported that they signed a licensing agreement with Topman, and they became the manufacturer in the islands, and probably shipped out into the Far East and the Philippines. Probably word got out through the sugarcane industry that these things were pretty good. So they were building them out there in Hawaii. And this came out of the Locomotive Engineers Journal. And you can see in the picture there, the Topman was actually a pretty interesting contraption. It's the only one I've seen like this. It was self-propelled, but you'll see there's a big flat deck on the front here. That's actually a mower deck. So they would basically mow the weeds down first, and then all the pipes you see coming in would be the flame burner. So as they rolled over it, then they would insert everything they had just chopped up. Probably kept it, it was probably a pretty nice system for fire abatement, because again, you were keeping it all compact to the roadbed within that mower deck. Fire wasn't getting out, and you know, embers weren't getting out around it, but generally weed burning crews always had fire suppression with them when they went along. The Keene Car Company, they got into the business too. They also had a mower deck in the front. They used a big box to contain their fire. Here, as you can see, this UP model. So again, the same thing. The idea was to mow it down and then burn it. And again, most of these weed burners were designed to run at about 3 to 4 miles an hour. So they could do about, usually it was about a 3-man crew on a weed burner, and they could do about 25 miles a day, which back in the old days, it was usually about 25 miles between section houses. So you could get a section of track done in a day. Lamb weed burners. Again, this was another one I just came across. I didn't realize there were that many. This manufacturer happened to, it's in fact a flat car with the weed burning mechanism put on it. But again, you can see this correspondence I found where they were corresponding with the Fonda, Johnston, and Gloversville Railway in Gloversville, New York, for purchase of a unit. And again, one of the downsides with the non-self-propelled units is that you're in for a locomotive crew. Fairmont, you know, one of the biggest names in maintenance of way equipment, was in the weed burning business too. And they built them for many years. The other thing that you could use weed burners for if you were a northern climate railroad is you could use them to melt ice in the points of switches in the wintertime. So again, they had dual duty for northern climate railroads. So pretty much everybody had them. Oop, let's go back one. All right, the Woolery Machine Company out of Minnesota. Now, if you don't know, Fairmont's out of Minnesota, and I found this company, Woolery, out of Minnesota. And Horace E. Woolery was one of the founders of Fairmont 9, and he started the Woolery Company in 1917. So apparently he had a falling out with Fairmont and decided he could do better on his own. So he went out on his own. And you'll see this monster here. This was called the giant octopus, and it has 5 or 6 burners on it that were on boom arms. Very complicated device. It's got pulley systems. These could all be slewed and moved independently. It's actually a 2-unit affair. Quite frightening to think that this back here is a fuel tank. That's going to be 1,000-gallon fuel tank. I don't think I'd want to be the operator sitting on top of a bomb like that, but they did. For me, this was a eureka moment because the weed burner, I was trying to figure out if it was shop built or not. As soon as I saw the nozzles on this Woolery, I knew that that unit that I had taken photograph had to be a Woolery. So I got my first lead. Yes?
Which direction did they operate in? Did the burning go in front of the engineer or behind him?
Both.
Both.
Depending on the manufacturers. I can tell you the Fairmonts, and I believe the Woolery ran with the burners up front. But some of the other ones, and actually I'll take that back, even Fairmont, I think one of their units, the driver, for lack of a better term, faced opposite the burner man. So then he was looking down in the direction of travel, and the burner man was looking off the backside, watching what was going on.
Did they have a crew that followed them to put out embers and things like that?
Yes, almost every railroad did it. As a matter of fact, in some of the manufacturer's literature that I found, they sold trailer cars. It would go behind either a pump car or a speeder, and have a 100 or 150 gallon water tank on it, and they would be the fire suppression crew. I found more pictures of Woolery as I started digging into it, now that it was a Woolery, and I found this upper picture of what they call the mini octopus, and it has looks like 2 or 3 burners on it, but it strikingly looked an awful lot like the device I had seen down there. The general layout was very close to it, so I knew I was on the right track at that point. And now I just regretted the fact that I hadn't taken more pictures of this thing when I was out there. I did find some online. So what inspired me to build this damn thing? Mike did, to tell you the truth. It was the Nutmeg modeling challenge we did last year, and I think we need to do another one pretty soon. For those that didn't do it or don't remember, it was basically take a recycled food container and build a little module on it, and it was along the line. And my whole idea was I was going to build this little weed burner and set it on top of something like that, like a yogurt cup or a cottage cheese cup or something like that on a little display stand. And that was the initial thing. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to the actual event because I had a conflict in my schedule. And so I had built the piece and had a little piece ready to go, and then that fell through. And because I like modeling maintenance of way equipment, I started thinking about, even while I was building this, is how could I incorporate this into my railroad eventually? And I didn't want to just park it on a siding somewhere just as a little view piece. I wanted to be able to use it in some way. So I really think about what I could do with it. And that led me through my build. Someone who really inspired me was Jack Burgess. Jack built a Fairmont. If you're not familiar with Jack, he models the Yosemite Valley Railroad in 1937 specifically. And he has a goal of building every piece of equipment that ran on the railroad in 1937. And he is an expert on the Yosemite Valley, and his railroad is spectacular. And you'll see on the bottom there, he has a Fairmont speeder. Actually, that one is running in the same direction. The operator is up in the raised platform there for the driver. But there is a video from TSG on YouTube, and he goes over how he built this thing. Now, Jack models in HO scale. He built this Fairmont speeder in scale because the Fairmont, when he checked his records, did not operate in 1937. The railroad didn't buy it until sometime in the 40s. So he didn't need it for his railroad, so he built their no scale, and it's an absolutely stunning model. He also has a Facebook page where he also describes this build in quite detail, and it's absolutely a stunning model that he built. So that challenged me to try to do something. One of the challenges, well, I'm going to build this little thing in HO scale and really go for it. So, what did I find out? Well, no plans for WB3 exist, and that was the designation for this weed burner. One of the neat things is there's almost nothing in the historical records from the Rio Grande. Well, it's WB3, that means what happened to WB1 and 2? Find no record of either of the other two weed burners anywhere. I suspect maybe they were standard gauge, can't prove it. So again, no records out there. There were some historical photographs, and then photographs that I took and some other people took at the Pioneer Museum, but not a lot. I mean, I basically made printouts of all of them that I had. The one thing I noticed is that most of the pictures show WB3 on top of a flat car here. I could pass these around to you. And if you look at it, it's in pretty sad shape. The burner boom arms are not on it. They're not on the flat car. So the car looks like it's in a semi-mothballed state. Probably ready to transport it somewhere, but then the more I dug into this thing, the more I realized that it was probably getting ready to go to the scrappers. I was able to zoom in on the one picture of the side of the flat car. There's a nice side shot of the weed burner, and the repack on the bearings was 1966. So I know that this is 1966, and by that point the Rio Grande narrow gauge was on its last legs, so it was definitely on its way out the door. Let's see what else here. One of the goals I have in my modeling whenever I take on a project like this is if I can see a detail in a photo, I try to model it if I can. There is that point of diminishing return at HO scale or N scale, or you just can't do details. You're not going to see them, or they're just not worth the effort to put them in. But I tried to go for it. Some of the parts were difficult. One of the difficult parts was the engine's kind of hidden behind some equipment grills and screens and some cowlings. And it was like, I found out that Woolery made their own engines. They're extremely rare. I found some pictures of restored ones online, but there are literally only maybe a dozen of these engines out there in existence. They were used on farm equipment, like the hit and miss. So there's the collectors out there that do hit or miss engines. And Woolery seemed to be like a very difficult engine to find. So slowly I was piecing together what was going on. The bigger problem was that since that thing was in semi-mothballed shape, it took a lot of scratching my head and thinking like an engineer on how this thing actually worked. Again, that's where the Neil ruler came in handy. That side shot I'm passing around, you'll see I've sketched on there, and I've started, as I was determining dimensions for the equipment, I was noting them down on the side of that copy of the drawing that I had, slowly piecing it back together. And
Art, what did you start to use as a reference point on that photo?
I knew that the wheels were standard size. I believe they were 24, 26-inch speeder wheels, so that's where everything grew off of that. So I set it on baseline the Neo ruler and started going, okay, the fuel tank is, the burner tank is 36 inches in diameter, you know, length of the car. Width I could figure out. So again, as I got piece dimensions together, I could go to a different orientation and look at it. And, you know, I had some, let's see. I did have some, I don't know if I've done all the shots. Probably not. No, I do have some nose shots, so I was able to figure out the width and a lot of the equipment that way. So just slowly piecing it together. A few of them are just based on proportions. I took guesses at it, but it's pretty close. The narrow gauge and short line Gazette back in '92, I think it was. I do have a picture of that one here. Here's a copy of the article here that shows the weed burner in Durango. I was never able to find the original picture, but I was able to enlarge the picture, and I could dig out some more details. This is clearly in operational mode. The booms are on. You'll notice back here there's a which was the loading for the burner fuel. Back there they would have a hose, drop it into 55-gallon drums, and just basically pump it into the main tank there. In the other photos, a lot of this whole assembly is off it. I was able to figure out that I was missing something because I could see there was rusty points on the frame of the speeder in its current condition where something had been bolted there and there was no paint and now there was rust. So I knew something was missing and I finally found it in this photo. The fuel pump over here, I was able to determine again from some of the pictures, some of the remaining piping, you could see that there used to be a pressure gauge at the top of this pipe and it wasn't connected to anything anymore. So I knew that was the fuel pressure gauge. So just a lot of detective work and trying to figure out how mechanics worked. I was able to determine it. And again, here you can see there's a push cart with the fire suppression tank on it. So I was able to do that too. So again, here are some pictures from the Gunnison Pioneer Museum in its current state. The family that had rescued it and held on to it for a while, I'm assuming took some spray paint cans, rail cans, and just kind of hit to try to cover up some rust and preserve it a little bit. Because if you look at some of the pictures, you could just see they were just like up and down with a spray can to try to get some paint on this thing. And they used orange, but again, in some of the pictures, you can see that the original safety yellow down on the frame. So I was able to basically confirm from the historical black and white photos that it should have been safety yellow. So it took a lot more to do. I'd really like to get out to the Pioneer Museum and take a lot more detailed photos of it and do a proper drawing of it to save it for history. So actually building the model, it probably would have been really easy to build the entire thing as a 3D print. Just basically just do all my assemblies and build it all that way. But I still like to build things, and I felt it would be easier to just, I would have had to build it in pieces and assemble it all in the CAD model anyway, so why not just print each piece and build it according. So this was the Woolery engine with the belt drives off both sides of it, as I believe they are. The fuel tank for the motors strapped above it. Another frightening prospect is that the fuel tank's right above it itself. And then the cowling that hides the exhaust area. This is the main squirrel cage blower that was powered off the belt that would force air down this main header tube. They had gimbals on the side here which had valves in them that show in some of the pictures. So they had mechanical linkages that would open and close those like dampers on a flue and control the amount of air blowing downstream. And then there was also a gimbal mechanism here so the booms could go up or down and side to side. So again, some of it I simplified.
3D printing, do you use
resin or filament?
Yeah, for this one I use resin. Resin is you'll get a lot more detail out of it in smaller things. The filament deposition printers that use the extruded material, they're good for larger scales and for bigger objects. They're probably really great for buildings and things, but for small details, resin's definitely the way to go. And I have done one on that. Again, I could probably do another clinic on that. So again, going back to, if I built this thing, I just didn't want it to be a shelf princess. I wanted it to actually do something. So I put lights in this thing, and I'll turn that on. So from Evan Design, it looks like one of them actually either I lost a connection or I burned out a flicker circuit, so I'll have to check that. But I got 402 nano LEDs, and Evan Design sells them with a built-in flicker circuit, and they sell them at different voltages. And I bought ones that would operate at DCC track voltage. So the idea is I could drop this on the tracks and the LEDs would flicker accordingly. And luckily I had to cut some of the heat shrink tubing from the Evan Designs, but I was able to squeeze them into the frame underneath the car and hide all the wiring underneath the car, and just took the input leads and made little track wipers that sit by the back wheels there. So doesn't have to sit in one location. I can move it around my layout. And then I took an idea from Dave Meeks, who, if you haven't seen his videos on YouTube, he has a Thunder Mountain Mesa channel. And he had a scene. He was a former Disney Imagineer. So a lot of his modeling he does micro layouts, is inspired by the ride attractions at Disney World and Disneyland. And on Thunder Mesa, he did one where he wanted to have a geyser that was on one of the original train rides at Disneyland. And so he did a nice YouTube video on it where he bought a modified vape pen device from a gentleman. Put that off there. So what you have here is you have basically a vape pen. They've fitted it with a push-to-connect fitting in here, so if you need to fill this thing, you can just unscrew this, and the glycerin vape juice just goes in here, fill it up, and this thing will run about 25 minutes on a full tank with this little guy here, which is pretty good. And I'll give you a quick shot here. This is running currently off a battery pack, because it would be easier to do that. And I've got a push button. I'll probably put a random circuit on it. Well, there you go. You get your smoke. So, nice little device. There was a gentleman in, I think that makes these already built like this, and it was around $65 US, shipped out with shipping. So not bad. You could probably build it yourself. I didn't want to get into going and buying a vape pen and do the modifications myself. So that one was one I did it. Let somebody else do it and just took it. So again, that tied into what I had been thinking about for a while. Is how could I use this as an operational tool on my layout here? Narrow gauge operations, we're single track mains. The track was never complicated. We didn't have switching puzzles like some people like to design into their layouts. The switching was going to be pretty simple, and dispatching would probably be pretty simple. The era I model, everything ran as that for the crack passenger train that was still in existence at the time. That was the only scheduled trains, east and west. So everything's running as extra, so the operations will be fairly low key for the dispatcher. So again, I've seen layouts where people hotbox detectors or other random events to cause headaches for the dispatchers and the crews. So I said, well, how could I use the weed burner to cause headaches for my dispatcher? I'll show you how it's operating here. People are going to come up and look at it afterward. So the little test bed I made here. And actually the other one's working now, so maybe it's just the flicker decided not to flicker for a while. So again, the idea was that I made this little test piece here, plumbed in the pneumatics tubings that come off that, off the smoke jet. And I said, well, you know what? If I build these in as I'm laying my track, it only requires a couple of small holes outside the rail heads. Between the ties, I can stick these hoses in, and then all I have to do is just unplug my smoke generator and move it somewhere else on the layout, plug it in and move the car over since it just needs contact with the rails to operate. I could have the weed burner burning a siding, and guess what? The dispatcher can't use that place for meets anymore for that operating session because that track's out of service. It's blue flag. Also for switching crews, they may have to do off spots because, you know, maybe they're in weed burning a siding somewhere. So you can't deliver a car that you're supposed to deliver, so you're going to need to leave it as an off spot somewhere for the next session. So again, little things that could, at least it's not just sitting there looking pretty on a siding somewhere, it's actually causing a little issue in the operations of the railroad. So that's pretty much all I have for this. Here's some detailed shots of it up close here. And it was a lot of fun to build it. The safety cages that cover up the belting material, so those were 3D printed frames, and then just put brass micro mesh in them. What else? So the boom arms are, I think, 1/8 inch styrene tubing, and I 3D printed the nozzle heads. They slid right on. I was able to fish the nano LEDs out of the heads here, put a little white glue in there to lock them in place. And then, like I said, tucked all the wiring in so it was hidden. I had to do custom decals because the Rio Grande logos, even an N scale, weren't small enough to fit on the tank properly. So I rescaled my own and printed them on my laser, put those in. I've added the operating crew. So as best as I can assume on WB3, it was a 2-man crew. You had your operator sat up here at these upper chairs, and what looks like a brake wheel. I was scratching my head trying to figure out what that might have been. I didn't think it was the braking for the car. I finally got hints at what that probably was, and what really threw my mind is, it's like that wheel has to go, the mechanism has to go down through the fuel tank. Did they actually weld a sleeve into the fuel tank and have the rod for the brake wheel go down? And as best I can tell, that's what they did. And it went underneath the car, and it was probably cabled out, and that was actually the slewing for the arms, for the boom arms. So he would just crank it in and swing the arms in, or let it go back out. It was probably naturally built to basically boom out to its whatever location. So his job up there was basically moving the boom arms, and these long shafts that you see here with the faucet nozzle handles on them are massively long stemmed. The valves sat up in the front here by the frame, and he would control the fuel flow from up there. And then the little black handles you see here, these were actually sleeved with pipe, and there's a linkage down here, a small linkage, and I think I did model it, that came out to where the dampers were, so they could control airflow. So he had airflow and fuel control, so he could adjust his mixtures as he was going along. So a lot of fun trying to figure out how the heck this thing worked and put it back together. So that's it. Sometimes it's fun to go down a rabbit hole, and I had fun with this one. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any idea how, did they just light it up and rag or?
Yes, some of the accounts I've seen is they would get the air flowing first, get the air up to the proper flow rate that they wanted. Then they would open up the valves one at a time out to the burner heads. There was you can see the flexible hoses here. So it came off the valves here, came out, and then they had a hard piping that came out to the burner heads. And then they injected it there at the nozzle end. So they would stick something up through the nozzle head and light it off. And open up the other side and light that side off. And on this particular model, the up and down was a fixed set. Basically, there were hooks and chains, so they would just adjust it by how many chain links you let out would determine up or down on the boom heads. So yeah, that's what I got there. And we'll take a break. I don't know, did our other clinician show up?
He did.
He did, perfect. So we'll give some time for him to get set up, and if anybody wants to come up and check out the model up close and play with the smoke generator, you're free to do that. Thank you. Yeah, so the speeder is Durango Press little white metal casting kit. I added details on it so it looked like this pretty close to the speeder in the photograph. And the fire suppression trailer, Tichy cells, hand car, push car, and trailer platform kits. So you get one of each times 6, I think, in a box for like $20. So I just took it, I narrowed it for the narrow gauge and put it back together. The hardest part with the speeder was, since it's white metal castings, I had to make it so it was electrically isolated. So I had to drill out the speeder wheels, put styrene rod in there, and then drill through the center of the styrene so that I had an insulation on the wheels so I didn't have a direct short rail to rail. So that was the only trick there.
That's pretty crazy. He's in a big tent.
Yeah. I did have that all set up for the contest too. So, you see, basically all of the models, they've got a little fan in here and it's just blowing the air up through the vape pen. Yeah.
It's really effective.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's real simple setup. And, I just, hey, let me ballast it in. Let me see if it'll all work right.
Right.
We're good on the little display one, so I said, okay, I'll go with this one. And add the fire suppression unit to follow up.
Right.
So. It took me longer to figure out all the models for it. The trailer car probably took me, the water tank is 3D printed that I put on there, a little 7-inch frame for it. Like I said, this is the only thing I did is I built the wire backs on it, the rest of the car, and put like they have the handles for the slide out so you can lift the speeder in and off the rail. So a few details, and I just left the roof on. We're actually through. Anybody not have all rifles in it? Go for it. What we've already director on it.
We still share, but like, So we have what's the price today? We have our, all right, for our action today, we have a Acurail Wood Reaper, Westcott and Gates, buttering culture kit, so we will pick one here. One. We have 416-8207. Hey! Very all right. Thank you. All right. Speak into the microphone, nice and clear.
Go right into the laptop.
Where's the microphone?
Right in the laptop, so just.
Oh, okay.
No, don't wander from the podium.
Try not to wander too far.
Okay.
That's not your arrow.
All right. All right, good morning, everybody. So we're going to go over a clinic that I built years ago, and it's called Modeling Realistic Waterfront Scenes. And there's something about waterfront scenes that I love, and if you put tracks next to it and put a locomotive, it's even better. So a lot of these pictures I took were from a boat that I don't have anymore. So that's why I really like this presentation, because some of the pictures I can't get anymore unless I borrow someone's boat. But so a lot of these pictures are taken in South Norwalk, Mystic, Bermuda, Haiti, New York City. So there's a whole bunch of different areas I like to take pictures of. I look at the scene and then I look at the colors to try to replicate them. So I do have a diorama here that I built for the Expo in 2018. So I'll show you some of the things I did on that kind of go back and forth from the presentation. So I guess the up doesn't work. Oh, here it goes. All right, so I'm going to be discussing all these things in this presentation. I'm going to discuss some of the things that you can do to help model these areas. So seawalls, piers, pilings, low tide scenes, which I think are probably the best out there, ship tie downs, waterfront clutter, and then I had some miscellaneous pictures that I took, and I still have a whole ton more. So when I go on vacation, if there's a waterfront scene, my wife already knows that I'm pulling the car over and I'm going to be taking pictures. So, and she basically comes and picks me up later. She just leaves me there. And so it happens. So one thing we're going to start with is sea walls. When you're modeling sea walls, you want to know, do you want to go modern or do you want to go aged? Or you really want to go dilapidated? What level of modeling or what level of weathering do you want to achieve? High tide or low tide, or slack tide if you want. What materials you're going to use, stone, concrete, wood, a mixture, and then also what details you're going to use. Sky's the limit with some of the details, and with 3D printing now, you can go a lot more now. Trying to remember I took this picture into Cape Cod. So this is basically a modern seawall. And you can actually get this seawall right from at Seaport Model Works, Crow River Model Works. Crow River Products has this. So you take it out of the package, you paint it, you weather it, you put it on your layout. It's that simple. So some of this stuff is available on the commercial market, but some of it's not, so you're going to have to create it. Here's more of a modern seawall with some type of bumping device on it, and that was taken on the west side of New York a few years back. I think this was down in Newport.
I don't remember. But if you show me a seawall and then you add a pipe to it, I said, I gotta take a picture of it. So you have a mixture of stone in the background. Also, you have the modern steel, and then you have that half a pipe. And you can easily do that. If you take a piece of brass tubing, cut it in half the long way, and just plop it in there and put your water effects in there. This was taken in Cape Cod on one of my fishing trips, many fishing trips I went on. And you have a concrete wall, you have your pilings, and you also have, I don't have a laser pointer, but you also have these steel plates that are inlaid into the wall. So with something like this, you can actually take and make your own mold using styrene, stepping it up, then pouring it with hydrocal. There is a video out there. Foscale Models actually did this, and he actually added a lot of different scenes or a lot of different details on this. So there is a video out there. I might do this in the future on my way out. I have no idea yet, but another thing is you can see the ripples in the water there, and you can actually model the ripples in the water, and I have an example there, and I'm using simple products such as Mod Podge, and also AK makes also a material called Water Effects. Here's more of like I think this wall is too clean. It looks like it was just recently redone, but I did take a picture of it. I'm also taking pictures not only for the seawall, but also the color of the water. So, and you can actually achieve that color with 4 different colors. You can use black, cerulean blue, hooker green, and then yellow ochre. You'll be able to get that color really quickly. So all you need is 4 colors. You don't have to go crazy buying stuff. Here's another example of a seawall, low tide, obviously. This was taken up in Provincetown and Cape Cod, and this is all the way at the end of the pier. And if you go there today, you'll see it. Best time to look at it is low tide, obviously. So you can easily make this seawall using some strip wood and also some tile grout, sorry. And there's another expanded view of that. It's too quiet in here.
We could tackle.
Please. So this seawall, I think this was in, this is also in Cape Cod. And what I liked about this one was you can see how the wood is deteriorating, and then you have the algae growth. I actually simulated the algae growth on that model right there, and that's easily you can use is the Bragdon weathering powders. Use the green and just hit it. And if you go a little too heavy, it's okay because there's a prototype somewhere out there. So that should not be an issue. This was taken in South Norwalk where I kept my boat. So I can tell by the launch right there. But you have a mixture of pilings, boards, steel, concrete, all in one. So if you take different materials and combine them, you can create a scene like this. Now the concrete, the layers of how they pour the concrete, you can model that using masking tape. So once you put concrete material on, put a piece of masking tape and just take a little brush and brush down, let it dry, pull it off, and go to the next step and brush down, and then you can get your concrete lines, so to speak. And you can easily take some cardstock to make the steel, and the bolts are easy to get. Those are available at Tichy, so you can actually get the bolts and glue them on and create that same scene. There's a lot of repeat pictures in here, but I wanted to, I'm taking pictures of the scene, and I'm also looking at the colors as well, try to replicate that. Now the barnacles on the bottom are easily reproduced. Just use some N-scale ballast, dip your whatever part in glue, and put them on there, and then you get instant barnacles. And here's another shot of the pier.
And another shot of it there. I personally gravitate towards low tide scenes because you can see a lot more debris and whatnot with low tide. Now, if you notice this picture here, you can see where the low tide is, and then you have the algae growth and then the regular concrete wall. But very similar to that, if you're looking for how low you want to put your low tide scene. So it can be done. It's really simple to make a low tide scene. You take a 1/2-inch brush and you can put it in any type of washes. You can use an oil wash, you can use Hunter line, you can use alcohol India ink, and then Best Trains just came out with a new line of weathering washes, which are phenomenal. All you do is take your brush and just drag it across. It's that simple. You don't have to be a rocket science to do it. And also, once you're done with that, let that dry, and then come in with the powders, and then you can give it another wash and just keep going. You can't screw it up. It's that simple to do. So, in fact, if you guys want to pass this around. Again, another shot of all the different colors. I mean, I was just going for colors at this point. And like I said, a lot of these pictures repeat themselves, but when I saw this, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do this. There's something about seawall, and you put a pipe there, you got to model. I don't know why, but it's just my thing, I guess. I'm a weirdo. What do you want? And again, scenes tell a story, so you can see how on this scene here, have a more modern wall or an update, and then you have the older part there. So you can mix and match. If you have a seawall that has stone, you can do another section that has wood too. It's no big deal. If you're ever traveling to JFK, don't do this while you're driving, but if you're a passenger and you're driving down to the airport, there's a section where you can see all the subways, and then there's a harbor scene there. Just take a glance over to the right, and you're going to see seawalls you've never seen before. They're all dilapidated. You have concrete, you have stone, you have stones that are all mixed matched, and it just adds variety to the scene. So this picture was taken in Cape Cod on one of my fishing trips I went on. Now this is slack tide. This is not low tide yet. So I was able to get this picture as we were going out. But again, you can see the different colors based on how high the tide will get. Easily replicated with powders and washes. So if you go, Woodland Scenics sells talus. Is it talus? You can get all different types, and you can actually easily replicate this scene as well. As far as the water goes, you notice that there's a spider going across the screen. I'm like, that's not in the presentation. So if you look at the water on this, you're not going to have a lot of chop there. So in this case, and you can see the rocks underneath the water. If I wanted to model that scene, the best way to do it is to use Envirotex, pour it, let it set up, and then you can actually add ripples on top of the Envirotex with the acrylic materials, either Mod Podge or the AK, and now there's all types of magic water you can get to, but I would start with an acrylic on top, and you can actually make those waves. So, okay, so that same scene that there was a slack tide, now that's low tide. As I discussed earlier, you can take N-scale ballast and create the barnacles if that's the scene that you're looking to do. But if you look, you have a seawall behind, and you have going across and then you have pilings going up. So it's all different types of seawalls that you can actually make. And I believe that is a fuel shanty up on top. That's just another shot of it. Climbing up that grade is like, whoa. Okay, so that's the other picture that is very low tide. I have a lot of seawall pictures in here. Okay. So if you notice that the water's a little bit different and the seawall is a little bit different. So this picture is actually taken in Bermuda when I went on a trip there. And it's just another example of what could be modeled. If it's out there, if you model it, there's probably a prototype out there somewhere. Now, a more modern seawall with heavy rust as well. If you wanted to model something like that. Okay. This right here is something I plan on modeling on the layout that I'm doing, because I'm going to have Bridgeport Harbor, New Haven Harbor, and Bay Ridge. So I'm going to have three major harbor areas on the layout. And I'm going to be doing low tide. So I wanted to replicate something like this. And the rocks there, if you see the way the rocks are arranged, does anyone know where I can get rocks like that? Anybody? I usually go right to the scene and I grab them, because those same rocks are there, but there's smaller versions of them. So you can get them. So yes, if you see this summer, if you see somebody up in Cape Cod, some guy roaming around grabbing rocks, that's me. But I have buckets of rocks that I've collected over the years, and you can actually take the same rocks that are actually out there and put them on your layout. Number one, they're pre-weathered. They're free. And all you have to do is glue them and maybe put some dry brush on, and you can create a realistic scene. So everything's right there for you. Oops. And another view of that area. This was in South Norwalk, and this was a steel seawall that they put in, more of a modern type of seawall. But again, you can see the different colors of the algae growth. You have the barnacles and everything else there. You can also do heavy pitting on the rust. A good technique you can try with this is you paint the part. This, if you take a plastic I-beam, you paint it burnt umber or just a primer brown. Then you mist it with a little bit of water, put some salt on it, then paint it again, let it dry, and then break away the salt, and you'll get a nice heavy chipping technique from that. And then you can go back and hit it with powders and dry brush it, and then another layer of weathering. So this was taken in Sedgwood Harbor in Cape Cod. Another example of a modern but dilapidated seawall, and that was high tide at that point.
What harbor is it?
Sedgwood Harbor, Sedgwood.
Okay.
Very good seafood over there. Let me get another section. I noticed that some of the seawalls have these huge anchors coming out. You would see like on the side of a building and stuff to hold the seawall together. They had these huge bolts that came out that locked the I-beams in, and they also had ones that locked in the wooden pieces. And I believe I should have a picture. Here it is. There's a bolt just looking sad. So again, heavy rusting. And I believe these are available, these types of seawall. These are more like a breakwater type of thing. And this was in South Norwalk. I took this on the way back in. So you can see how the low tide marks, and there's a common theme here. It starts with almost like a grimy black and fading into a algae growth, and then you can wash it and create that same thing. Any questions on the seawalls? Okay. I didn't take this picture. This was the closest I have ever had my wife to getting involved with modeling. I'm actually in this picture. If you can see me, I'm all the way up here. I was taking pictures that day, and I was up there, and my wife texted me, and she says, look what I did. I was like, wait a second, where are you? So I went down there and checked it out, and this is something I would like to try to model. It's definitely something that creates interest. If you have the low tide, you can just see once, I don't know what was there, but some type of pier. But having something like that on the layout on my seaport scenes is really going to make the scene pop. So it was one of my favorite pictures. I didn't even take it. So this is also in P-Town, very simple pier that you can build. If you get 1/8 inch dowels, you can get some 1x10s or 2x10s scale lumber, and you can actually build something very similar to that. It doesn't take a lot of work or a lot of effort. This one here is, I think this one has seen better days, but another example of it. Another pier here. These are all taken in P-Town. A lot of details are available. I'm not sure what these things do. I think they drag the bottom for some type of fishing. And you can see the algae growth and the heavy rust on it as well. For some, over here, their low tide is very low tide. So you're going to see very tall structures, or very tall piers in P-Town. This was also taken at Cape Cod. This is a more nicer pier, but I took it more for the water. Because I like to model moving water at some point. I did it on the model that's coming around, but I used Mod Podge to do that effect on the model. So adding details to your scene with seaports, you can add a jib crane, and then you can also add, if you notice in the center here, there's a ladder going up, which gave me the idea for the ladder that's on the model that's coming around. The ladders you can get through Central Valley. They come in a whole package. You can try those. Very simple, just glue it in place and weather it. You can also add the vertical boards as well, if you show desire. Adding jib cranes. You can add the ship tie downs, the bits, and everything else on there, and create a very cool scene. And sometimes just adding clutter to a scene creates a nice effect. You can buy rigging. I don't know the name. There is a company out there that sells a lot of the rigging and stuff for the shipbuilders. You can buy that. You can use thread if you want. You can use plastic I-beams and create that scene. You can even model the droppings there too. It's pretty simple to do. George Celios models that very well on the Franklin and South Manchester. He has a lot of bird droppings on some of his buildings, so it's pretty cool. Another example of the ladder I mentioned. And if you notice, there's like big sections on the pilings that just have this, it looks like somebody took a whole thing of Bragdon webbing powder, just threw it on there. So like I said, if you accidentally think you messed up, you probably didn't, because that's what it looks like. Also on the model that's coming around, if you notice in this picture here, you have the pier part that is chopped down, it's been weared away. Easy way to do that, if you've ever seen the top of these that are split, you take your 1/8 inch pilings, or your dowels rather, and you take a razor blade and just cut the top, roll it, cut the top, roll it, and then you weather it. So that would create that it's all split, and you can do that with regular boards as well. Just cut the ends. You can do this with plastic rail ties as well. Another example of some type of apparatus that they use to drag in the bottom of the ocean there. One of my favorite pictures I took, I like the lines, the ship mooring lines just hanging down there with water and everything else. This is a perfect scene. The water's very green too. Anybody have any HO scale castings of tires? Throw them on there. They work just as well. So here's a good shot of what I was talking about. Is the rotted poles. You can see it in the corner there. Another example of split boards. Imagine what people think of me if I'm taking pictures like this. What is this guy doing? He's nuts. But that's easily modeled with a razor blade, and you can actually do that. So this, just a little subtle detail will bring your scene to life. And again, another example of heavy. So I do think I just showed that picture. Here's another one. For some reason, this section of the pier needed lots of tires for the some of the ships that were docked there. At this point, when I was taking these pictures, a lot of the ships were out, and then I do have some other pictures with the ships in port. But this is the size of the pier that's up there. If you haven't been up there, check it out. The size of these ships are huge. For scale, you can see there's some trucks that are actually driven out on the pier, so you can see how big these things are. Okay, where did I take this one? Oh, I know where I took that one. The easiest way to make these, you take your dowels, weather them up the way you want to weather them up, glue them together. Get some, go down to Walmart and get a thread, sewing thread, get a brown, whatever you can find. Take Model Masters glue and glue one end of the thread and then wrap it. Make sure it's nice and tight, then run the Model Masters glue again. The reason why I like the Model Masters glue is it's very thin and it'll soak into the threads and actually lock it into place. Once you get that dried, then you can take your weathering powders, you can actually put oils on it, and it's going to look like steel cable by the time you're done. And there's an example of that on that model as well. So these are very easy to make, and there's so many different examples out there. This was taken in Stratford, Connecticut, when I had my boat in Stratford. You can even model the bird on top if you want. So this is right next to the Devon power plant. So this is out there right now. And it's really simple to make. Or if you want to put multiple birds on there, it's fine too. This was in South Norwalk. Again, you can make the signs, easy to make. These had they had wrappings on mid and on top. And that's all steel cabling. I've also seen them with chains. You can use HO scale chains as well. Okay, low tide scenes. Probably my favorite thing to model only because you can add that much more detail. So I do have a low tide scene. It's kind of a mild low tide scene. I didn't go too crazy with it, but there's so many scenery materials you can put out there to create this. With the what do you call the name of that company? Scenic Express. You can use some of the dirt that they have to create this, and then use weathering powders. You can use washes to replicate that. This was actually taken in New York, and I took this picture because look at the color of those rocks. It's probably one of the most green rock I've ever seen in my life. But again, it's just another example of what can be done. I showed this picture, and you can replicate this with talus. Start with some heavier rocks on top, and then sprinkle in the smaller ones right on the bottom there. And I showed that one already. This is actually taken in Stratford, and I noticed that the way that it was built, you can see that they had a double piling held together by two boards. This was taken in Norwalk. Now, if you want to recreate this scene, which was pretty cool because the water was dead still, because the picture, you can see everything on the bottom there. This will be another Envirotex project because there's not much water movement at all, if that's the scene that you're going for. But again, this is more of a modern scene, but underneath it looks pretty dilapidated. Showed that one already. This is South Norwalk. I took this picture basically for the color of the water, and now we're into ship tie downs. A lot of this stuff you can buy commercially. Seaport Model Works has all this stuff if you're looking for these things. And a lot of these, I don't remember where I actually took these, but there's different styles and different levels of weathering that you can do. You can achieve that with weathering powders on concrete. This one here was actually in Haiti. I took this picture of the ship. And I thought that was a neat one. That was also in Haiti. They had all different types. Obviously, these are for the big cruise ships. But I took this picture not for the ship tie down. I took the picture for the rust, just so I can try to replicate the rust. And we have waterfront clutter now. I love this stuff. This is at Sedgwick Harbor. The marina in the back is a mess. It's perfect for modeling. So check it out, take these pictures, and you're going to see that you can use the scraps that you have probably on your workbench to create this scene. And if you're doing craftsman kits, all the little pieces of wood, save them, put them in a box, because you'll be able to use them to make another scene like this. Really simple to create. So this was in the back of where they store the boats. This is actually in Bermuda. You can actually buy this 3D casting now with a crate full or pallet full of cinder blocks. As I was taking pictures over the years, my young one, I have two boys, and my youngest, for some reason, he said, "Dad, I like buoys." So he started collecting buoys everywhere he went. So we docked in Kings Wharf. And we're walking where the ships were, and I saw this area, so I started taking pictures. And of course, he had to get involved. He said, "Take my picture." But if you look to see how these things are pretty big, you know. So this is some type of area where they would service them and then get them back out. Now we're back in South Norwalk. This is at Rex Marine. This is around this time of year when all the boats are still wrapped up, so they have a pile of all the stands that they use for the sailboats and things like that. So I'm just using it just to take pictures of the clutter and then other stuff. You have all these piles of wood and everything. That's too neat for me, so. But again, you can use 1/8 inch square basswood to create that scene. And with today's 3D printing, you probably can buy that casting. Or ask Bernard to make it for you. He'll probably do it for you. Now we're back in Sedgwick Harbor. Sorry, I'm bouncing all over the globe here, but This is the way these things went in. I thought this was just a neat picture. It's like almost a 2-hour wait for dinner, so I figured I might as well take some pictures. And this is random stuff on the ground. How about some boards and some chains just sitting around, and some rope, and it's just little things, little details that will make your scene come to life. And this was actually in Wellfleet, Cape Cod, and I was like, wait a second, that's a pile driver sandwiched in between boats. I don't know why it was there, but it was pretty cool, so I had to take a picture of that. This is at Mystic Seaport, where they used to launch the boats. Again, if you're into that, Bermuda had one, Mystic Seaport has one. Definitely easy to model. What I liked about it is you have the tracks going down all the way down the water. If you're modeling interiors, Mystic Seaport is something to see when you go down there, inside the shops. And then you have the backside of the shops that looks like pretty cool to model. I took this picture for all the clutter and the rust on the roof, so I figured it would be a good, something cool to model someday. But you have all different types of lumber in the scene. You have everything going on here for a shipbuilding. That was an odd thing. This was in Newport. Can you imagine waking up in the middle of the night? One wrong step, you're getting wet. So I thought, I don't know what it was for, but I thought it was neat to take a picture of it. So this is in, start taking pictures of how heavy rusted the ships are. So if you're into modeling ships, this is something to see if this is what you want to model. Some of these ships were just rust. There was hardly any paint left on them. And then, of course, you also have cranes next to the seaport, something that will definitely bring your scene to life, and the jib cranes as well. I just took this picture for rust. That's it. But if you have one of those titchy jib cranes, you can easily replicate this as well. And then I got buoys too. So basically, this presentation is just all the pictures that I took in over the years to create some of the model that's coming around. Where'd it go? Oh, okay. So some of this model, and then one of the things I did not have in the presentation is the running water that's coming out of the pipe. And this is just a 1/4-inch brass tube. I took a piece of acetate and cut it, skinny on top, wider on the bottom. I glued it, stuck it in the pipe, and then I put the Mod Podge on the actual piece of acetate, so it looks like the water is just running out of the pipe. So, really simple to make. And again, these are just regular buoys. And then I just did some close-ups of the actual split wood, and you already saw that. And then some of the boats that I've taken pictures of as well. And another pile driver. They had a barge down south. So I know that Seaport Model Works makes these, and you can actually add all the details you want. All right, does anybody know where that is?
This accent?
Mm-hmm. No. That's New Haven. That's Bell Dock. And it's one of the few pictures I've seen at Bell Dock with actual cars sitting on the pier. So I thought it was a neat picture. I'm actually modeling Bell Dock on my layout. Not that far back, but you will see something similar to that.
What's the year?
That's got to be in the 20s, I believe. 20s or 30s. Then there's some other shifts I've taken over the years. Here we go. This was taken in Bermuda, one of the tugboats there. And you can see the fenders and the ship tie downs. Bermuda again, another launch for the ships. And then that's the model that okay. If you want to make seawalls, this is the stuff to get. Linen, it comes in a quart. It's pre-mixed grout. Take a good hobby knife or a spatula, putty knife, wherever you have, to make the seawall. That's what I did in that model. Let it dry overnight. And what's nice about this, there's actually stone in this thing. You can actually sand it, and you can actually have at it with the washes. It will soak in, and you can create that realistic concrete seawall. You can also make a street with this stuff. I think it's like under $20, and it'll last you a long time. So some of the other products that are out there are kind of on the expensive side, so I found a workaround, and I'm going to be trying this stuff making asphalt roads as well. So definitely something to check out. And I talked about the pipe earlier. Any questions? Sorry, there's a lot of pictures in there of all the different scenes I took, but yes.
You mentioned the term slack tide. What exactly is that?
Slack tide is in between low tide and high tide. So it's right in the middle. That's actually a good time to fish too. Yes.
Do you use your phone for these pictures, or do you have a camera?
I use my phone for everything now. Yeah. Yep. All right. Very good. Thank you. I will be creating a whole set of videos on actually how to do this. So I know I rattled off a lot of stuff. I do have my own YouTube channel that I'm going to be adding all these videos to. So I'm going to be doing realistic water, seawalls, pilings, water. I'm doing everything you see there. I'm going to actually make a video for you. Everyone can follow along. I know I gave you a lot of materials here, but I will do it step by step, and you'll actually get. Yes.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
New Haven Rails. If you go to New Haven Rails, I will have those up there. I'll even put the ones with the molds on as well to make the seawalls. One thing I did not mention with the seawalls was you can use actually commercially made molds. I don't know if they're still in business. Sterling Models. Sterling Models makes probably the best seawall molds out there. They make rock molds as well, but they make small ones, and the way they make them is you can interlock them after you make them. So they're about 6 inches long. You pour them with hydrocal, they're great. There's all different ones you can get, but I'll do a video on those as well. So definitely you can use plaster. So, all right, that's it.
All right.
I gotta eject this thing. Just click on the parent there. There. Yep. And then, thank you, sir. Perfect.
All right, well, that's all we have for the official portion of the meeting. So you guys can grab copies of the address and directions to the layout that's on display. And we'll see everybody in 2 months. Thank you.
Really?